Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Plenty to get into. Jake Shapiro is going to join us here in just a little bit to talk about Cowboy Bruce Brown. And is it a possibility that he could return back to the Denver Nuggets? Wouldn't that be just a crazy full circle moment? We're going to get into that. But first, we got to talk about, where does the Broncos rookie class rank this year? I was sitting down with our new PD here, Amanda, and executive PD, and you guys obviously all know Richie, and we were talking about this. And they asked me this question, and I'm thinking like middle of the pack. I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like we talked really highly about a lot of the rookies this year. And they're like, yeah, no, you need to go lower. So I'm like, okay. Like, out of all 32 teams, I'm thinking like 15. They're like, go lower. So I'm like 23. They look me dead in the eye and they say, the Broncos rookie class ranked number 31 out of 32 this year. And my mouth dropped. I was shocked by this because of how highly we had talked about so many members of this rookie class. Marvin Mims Jr., we were talking about him a ton. Jaleel McLaughlin, a ton. Drew Sanders, we saw him towards the end of the season. And I was like, all right, like we're seeing some improvement right here. And then I'm actually going to challenge the viewers right now. Try and name me the there's four other, but try and name me at least 3 other rookies that you can. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking really positive things about all of these guys. We talked about them so much. And then they were like, yeah, but they weren't actually that impactful compared to how other teams had their rookies play out. And I'm like, you know what? You are totally right. Number 1 on that list out of ESPN comes out to be, of course, the Houston Texans, because you look at their quarterback and CJ Stroud and what he's been able to do and plenty of their good names over there. So I'm like, okay, I get the point we're making. I just wasn't expecting them to come in at number 31 overall on that list. It really caught me off guard. And so I was like, well, let's just look at a few of these names. And again, I'm challenging you, if you're watching, to name. I named the big 3. Try and name me 3 others of the 4 that we are missing on that list. But Marvin Mims Jr., I feel like we were talking about him, and as a punt returner, he was great. I mean, he obviously had a few bad moments, but I also feel like we saw some good, productive play out of Marvin Mims Jr. that I was thrilled about. So I was like, I'm just shocked that we're ranking them so low. Jaleel McLaughlin, I've been calling him lightning this entire time. I was like, I feel like we're seeing so many good things come out of him as well, and the future is bright for both of those guys. Now, Drew Sanders, he obviously played at the beginning of the season, dealt with a little bit of injury, and then we saw him towards the end of the season, and so he was looking a little bit better. I feel like he was impactful too, especially after they had benched Russ, like those 2 games towards the end of the season. He was really impactful. I felt like we were seeing quite a few. Riley Moss comes into the mix. And I was like, okay, we're getting down to some of the names where it's like, we didn't really see a ton out of them. If we needed to, he was there. So I'm going to leave the other, 3 other names. And I want to see if any of you guys get this. So, but of course, Texans coming in number 1 with CJ Stroud killing it at quarterback. That one's not surprising at all. I want to get into a little bit more of the breaking news when it comes to head coaches. Last night, I think that this one took everybody by surprise. McCarthy is staying with the Dallas Cowboys as the head coach. I was not expecting this, you guys. You knew I was fully on the train of Bill Belichick is going to be the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. And nope, they're going to roll with their HC. And then also Dan Quinn is supposedly staying with the Cowboys as well. Quick story, quick side rant. I had actually interviewed Dan Quinn back a long time ago when he was with the Atlanta Falcons as the head coach. I was a part of a group called Galvanize, which is for young reporters looking to get into the industry and just get some experience working with NFL players. Head coach Laura Oakman, a sideline reporter for Fox, she does this whole program. And so I was in it when I was in college and I had the opportunity to sit down with Dan Quinn, and amazing guy. I loved him. But I do feel like after that experience of what he went through, and I obviously don't know him personally, so this is just kind of how I view the whole situation, I feel like he's all right being a coordinator. I don't know if he necessarily loved all of the ins and outs of having to figure out everything else as a head coach. And because he's been a top candidate for so long, it doesn't really surprise me for the fact that he's choosing to stay as a coordinator again. So Dan Quinn also staying out there. That one's not 100%. He's completed his interviews for what he was going to do, but everybody is linking him back to this. And then this also came as a huge surprise to me. Bill Belichick supposedly supposed to become the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Josina Anderson is tweeting this out saying, I'm expecting Bill Belichick to become the next head coach of the NFC South Atlanta Falcons. I was not expecting this at all, you guys. I was expecting him to go out to Los Angeles. Like, it just did not make sense. But in my head, too, like, is he really just going to follow Tom Brady? And he's like, hey, you won in that division. I'm going to prove that I can win in that division. Was not expecting that at all. Kim is a major, major surprise to me on that one. I was like, holy smoke. So tell me in the comments, which one was more a surprise to you, Belichick or McCarthy news? Because I feel like both were kind of like, oh, here we go. All right. Some other news that's going on with the Denver Broncos, of course, as they look ahead to the NFL draft, is who the heck they're going to go after, right? And that's going to be the conversation for the next couple of weeks. And a lot of people are linking them to JJ McCarthy, but some people are saying, no, that's way too similar to Russell Wilson. This is going to be my first time hearing this clip, you guys. And so I want you guys, we're going to have an immediate first reaction here, but let's take a listen.
Of the quarterbacks available, he's not the one that I would mark as the fit. That's not that JJ is not a good player, because he is. He's an excellent player. I think JJ would fit really well with, I heard you just talking about like Ryan Tannehill at Tennessee with Derrick Henry. You know, like JJ in a complementary offense really does a lot of things well. He's better in play action than he is in straight drop back. So having a coach that understands that, having the ability to play with extra gaps in the run game, extra tight ends, and then threatening the secondary with tight ends, that's the type of, I think, offense and structure and schematics that I think he would thrive in, because that's what he thrived in college. If you put him into a scenario where he's got 5 free releases and he's in the shotgun and he's going to be forced to make post-snap downfield reads more than 12, 15 times a game, that's not really what he did in college. Maybe he can develop into that in the National Football League, but to me, Sean's offense is best when he's got a point guard, a real true point guard at the quarterback position, not really a complementary piece to the run game and play action. I think, JJ in some ways is a version, although not totally similar, but a version of Russell Wilson. So I don't think that is, the best marriage or fit that I see in this draft.
Wow, that's so fascinating, because I remember after the national championship game, I came on here and I was like, they're kind of reminding me of Russell Wilson. So to hear that, I'm like, I can see the similarities, and I totally agree that Sean Payton wants somebody who can throw the bombs down the field. And I don't think that JJ is necessarily that. Honestly, I think it's going to be Daniels or it's going to be Penix. I think those are the two quarterbacks that they're really going to target hard. I do not think that they're going to trade up for the number 1 first overall pick and try and get Caleb Williams. I really do believe, and I know it's been speculation of if you have to trade Pat Surtain or whatever, I do not think that the Denver Broncos really want to trade Pat Surtain. I think if everything falls correctly, all the dominoes fall the right way, there would be a possibility, but I think they're going to do everything in their power to keep Pat Surtain. And I don't think that they're going to trade up for Caleb Williams. So those two guys, like I said, Jalen Daniels and then Penix, I think are going to be the two that they really go hard on. So it's fascinating. It's interesting to see that. I personally wasn't on board for JJ McCarthy. I was like, if you had another year if Russell Wilson was a good enough quarterback that you could win with him, make it to the playoffs, that kind of thing, and he could be that bridge quarterback, then yeah, I could totally see going after JJ McCarthy. But I just don't think that relationship is going to be there. And like they said, and they kind of explained his play, I think that Sean Payton wants somebody that can throw the bombs down the field, and I just don't think that's JJ McCarthy. So excited because I see somebody backstage that it's been a while since he's been on the show. So I'm excited to bring in our very own Jake Shapiro. Jake, good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Rachel. It's great to see you as well.
I know, it's been a minute. How are things, my friend?
Things are good. Just enjoying trying to stay warm. I live in a very old building, as evidenced by the brick wall. And it got down to like 51 degrees in this room earlier this week. Like we have radiators. It's drafty. So the continuous cold of a couple days building up. I was struggling. There was a day, and don't tell our boss, James Marilat, where I was just laying in bed with like 4 covers, typing my little stories for denversports.com, because I was like, all the other rooms in my house are too cold.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm happy that we're no longer in single temps, although I am afraid to say it's like 50 degrees right now here in Denver, but it's supposed to drop to like 30 by 2 o'clock. So I think more cold weather is on the way, my friend.
It's all right. As long as we're not living in the Siberian tundra that we were living in earlier this week, I think we'll be all right.
Fair, fair, fair. All right, I want to get into this Cowboy Bruce Brown stuff because, of course, Denver fell in love with him. The sixth man, he was a perfect piece for what the Nuggets needed to do to be able to win the championship last year. But now, of course, with this huge trade, this blockbuster trade, which I want you to kind of explain the details of, is it even possible for Bruce Brown to make his way back to the Denver Nuggets?
Quick answer, no. Bruce Brown is not going to be a Denver Nugget anytime soon. The first time you're going to see him in Denver next is March 11th when the Toronto Raptors come, and that's even if he is on the Raptors, which I'll get into in a second. Essentially, in order to get Bruce Brown, the Nuggets would have to trade one of their starting five.
Mm-hmm.
You want to trade anyone in the starting five for Bruce Brown? Probably not. So that's why they're not going to do that. The only situation in which Bruce Brown could even become a Nugget this offseason is if Reggie Jackson declines his player option, which he's not going to do. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope declines his player option, which he'd only do to get an extension, and he'd have to take an extension at a cheaper number than his options at. And even then, they only would have like about $5.5 million to offer Bruce Brown, who's scheduled to make $23 million on a club option next year, and the club would have to decline that, which is possible. So there is all sorts of scenarios in which would need to happen in order to get Bruce Brown even back here next year. But this year, it's just not going to happen. And honestly, it's not necessarily even what the Nuggets need right now. Going into the trade part of this, just the straight up trade. Tyrese Halliburton, one of my favorite players in the league, probably top 10 player already in the league. He's a fantastic point guard. He is going to be leading the American Olympic team next summer in Paris. He might be their best player on that team in terms of what he's producing for that team. Yes, LeBron, KD will be on that team, but he is going to be a pivot point. Yes, Rachel.
Which, by the way, won't you be in Paris? Are you going to be able to see them play?
Yeah, the basketball games will be in Lial. I'll be in Lial for that for the first couple days of the tournament. So I won't get to see the medal rounds, but I'm hopefully going to catch maybe Jokic and Murray playing for Serbia and Canada, which would be fantastic. So I will be there. But Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best players in the league. Pascal Siakam is a two-time All-NBA player, was an All-Star last year. He's gotten better offensively. He's taken a step back defensively since where he was at in the finals when he won with Kawhi. This is about pairing Tyrese Halliburton with another star, an opportunity to do so where they can kind of sell Pascal Siakam, who's a free agent this summer, on the idea of playing with Tyrese Halliburton, and they should be a really good fit. This really has minimal Nuggets impacts because this is a team in the East. This is honestly a mid-tier team in the East. This isn't a team they're going to run into in the finals. The interesting part of this, too, is that Masai Ujiri is the Toronto Raptors president, former Nuggets president. He's running the Raptors. He is all of a sudden selling off a lot of parts. One of those parts is probably going to sell is Bruce Brown now. Bruce Brown's probably going to get traded again here. And the thing to look out for is remember who was really into Bruce Brown in free agency this past year, Rachel?
My heart wants to say the Lakers, but was it the Lakers?
Yeah. And it works perfectly to trade Bruce Brown for D'Angelo Russell. Perfectly. I'm not saying it's going to happen. The New York Knicks really want Bruce Brown as well. He's going to be a coveted asset. And I know the Los Angeles Lakers are in talks to try and get DeJounte Murray from the Atlanta Hawks, who had a game winner last night. There are better fits for the Lakers than Bruce Brown, honestly. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bruce Brown is playing against the Nuggets in a playoff series this year. It's a possibility.
Wait, that hurts my heart a little bit. I don't want that, Jake, but also I'm happy that Bruce Brown is out there, one, getting the bag. He obviously got that. But we know that, when you become one of those rotating players, that's not necessarily what a player wants either.
No, it depends, though. And you know what? He chose that. He chose to take the money and kind of take a meandering path. He could have stayed in Denver for a significantly less amount of money.
That six figure or $6 million, right?
Right. It would have been the difference of $18 million. It is a ludicrously less amount of money. Yeah. But if he had done that, he would have afforded himself the opportunity to extend himself long-term after this season. So if he wanted to make a home in Denver long term, he could have done so at the cost of a lot of money to him. But the reality in the NBA, and you look around the league, is there's about 2 to 3 guys who stay on each other's teams for a little while, and then everybody else moves around just because that's the way the collective bargaining agreement is written. The Denver Nuggets, if you look back at that bubble team, the only guys left are Jamal, Vlatko, Nikola, and Michael Porter Jr., I think. So just these things, they revolve quite quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised come next year, kind of like where we're at even with the Avs, there's only about half the team left from the Cup championship team already.
Yeah. That's why the championship window is so small, and you really got to make a push for it this year, which means the trade deadline is also coming up. Do you anticipate the Nuggets making any moves?
Yes, but not in the way you think. And even if they don't make a trade, they'll probably still make a move. Last year, if you recall, they did make a couple trades. They sent out Bones Highland. They got Thomas Bryant back. They got some picks. None of it had a huge impact on the actual playoff window, but they also opened up a roster spot for themselves, which allowed them to acquire Reggie Jackson after the trade deadline via a free agent pickup. There's a new stipulation in the collective bargaining agreement, which essentially says the Nuggets aren't allowed to acquire guys that were making more than the mid-level exception. So if Gordon Hayward is cut by a team after he is traded at the deadline, which is possible this year, he's making over $12 million. He makes about $20 million. The Nuggets would not be able to offer Gordon Hayward a contract. However, if a guy like PJ Tucker, who is on the Clippers right now and could be valuable to the Nuggets, was traded and cut, the Nuggets could actually get PJ Tucker. I explained all this in an article on denversports.com. ESPN actually wrote something very similar today. Number one target for the Nuggets is a reserve forward with size. That's what they need. Their backup guard situation is a little iffy at times. It's fine in the playoffs. Their backup center situation kind of sucks right now. It's fine in the playoffs when Aaron Gordon can do it. They just need another player with size, similar to what Jeff Green did last year. That's the role they're missing. They're not missing Bruce Brown. They're actually missing Jeff Green.
Okay, yeah, Uncle Jeff. How could we ever forget him? Real quick, though, just thinking about money and the cap and all of these things, if the Denver Nuggets were to offer Jamal Murray a supermax deal, how does that affect them moving forward into the next few years? Because you again have Jokic and Jamal. We obviously know the cap can be a bit of an issue.
So there's a new stipulation in the collective bargaining agreement, which essentially has 2 layers of tax. There's the first apron and the second apron. The Nuggets are already above the first apron. They're getting close to the second apron. That second apron is very prohibitive towards teams and what they can do moving forward. In fact, if you bump up against it enough times, you actually lose a future first round pick. So the Nuggets aren't going to be doing that. But Jamal Murray, in order to qualify for a super max contract, needs to get an all-NBA team appearance this year, which means he needs to play at least 65 games this year to qualify for the all-NBA team. Right now, because of that injury that cost him about a month, Jamal only has about 4 or 5 games he can miss the rest of the season to even qualify for the all-NBA team. Secondarily, I do not believe Jamal Murray is one of the top 6 guards in the NBA right now, producing at the regular season level. Come playoffs, yes, I'm taking him in my top 5 all the time. But look at the stats around the league between guys like Halliburton, who I've mentioned, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry. It's just hard to be one of those top 6 guys. And that's what you need to be on an all-NBA team. So the Nuggets can't even offer Jamal Murray that supermax unless a bunch of things happen here. However, he isn't actually a free agent after this season. It's next season. So Jamal could play this out again, which is really risky to play it out into your contract year and see how it goes. The long and the short of it is, if Jamal Murray gets a supermax contract, the Denver Nuggets will not have Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope all on their team. At least one of them, if not 2 of them, are going to get traded. Likely Aaron Gordon and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but it might have to be Porter because he has the bigger contract.
Okay. Well, good to know, Jake. As always, appreciate it. I do want to talk to you, though, about your buffs because they were in the headlines earlier this week with Shadeur and Shilo Sanders walking in the Louis Vuitton fashion show. Here we go. I actually love the orange fit, so I'm kind of here for this. But they ended up missing team meetings to do so. So I'm curious your opinion on this.
So sick. I mean, they're at the Louis Vuitton fashion show. That's so sick. And you talk about NIL, you talk about what matters to 18-year-old kids. And trust me, I teach a bunch of kids that are Shadeur and Shiloh's peers. This is the type of stuff that's cool. that matters, that draws people to your campus, that gets new athletes in the building, and it's those connections. Shilo and Shadeur, okay, they missed the first team meeting of the spring semester. They missed class also, by the way, that day. A little bit more important than missing a team meeting, in my opinion. But hey, we're going to make a big deal because we care more about football, and we're going to say the student athlete. It's the athlete student. We all know which one comes first. So the whole Denver media being up in arms about them missing their first team meeting and there's a double standard for the University of Colorado. There's not a double standard. If any single player on the University of Colorado got that opportunity, Deion Sanders, a fashion icon himself, would have allowed his players that opportunity. He has given players opportunities in NIL situations, like putting some walk-ons in commercials before. I don't think there's a second set of standards. I don't think that this meeting was all that important. It's not like they're in the middle of football season. It's not like they're even in a spring practice window. So it's cool. It helps elevate their names. It helps elevate their profile. And honestly, as ridiculous as this sounds, it sets them up for a life after football, because as Pharrell said to them in the video that they made, you have to think of yourself as more than a football player. And let's say Shilo Sanders, who's kind of a fringe NFL guy, wants to be a model. This was a fantastic opportunity for him. And I thought, as someone who watches fashion shows, I thought he killed it. I thought they both did such a good job. So this was really cool. And I'm glad that these guys got this opportunity, because it's not often you see guys in their early 20s get opportunities like this.
Jake, I hate when you make me change my mind on things. Did you know that? I absolutely hate it, because I was sitting here with being like, no, if they're going to be leaders of this team, they should have been there for the first team meeting. And I didn't think it was a double standard, but you're right. If any other player on that team would have had the opportunity, I would have been like, that's so freaking cool for them. But because it is Deion Sanders' kids, I'm like, oh, they should have been at practice. They should have been in school. Yada, yada, yada. I hate when you make me change my mind.
The whole team meeting is on YouTube. I watched it. I'm sure they watched it. It's not like they missed much. Like everything the Buffs do is on YouTube. So it's not like you can't get the information. Plus, when you're those kids in that situation, Shadeur and Shilo have had contact with every single player that has come into that building, transfer-wise, NIL-wise. They know the team. As leaders of the team, the guys around them are probably happy that they're getting that opportunity. And we always are talking about missing class, missing opportunities. What do you think is going to be happening when Stanford and Cal are in the ACC next year and they're playing Miami on a Thursday, or they're playing all those ACC schools in the middle of the week? They're going to be missing weeks of class. No one cares about this. Like, no one cares. Stop pretending like we care just because, some two kids that have a famous name are out there expanding their horizons, having an opportunity, and honestly doing so in a very wholesome way, in celebrating fashion and art. Like, this is the Louis Vuitton fashion show. Like, this matters. Like, this matters as much as the Colorado Buffaloes game against, I don't know, Northern Colorado that they're going to play in the next couple. Like, it matters way more than that.
Okay, first of all, when I go to Europe this year, I'm going to be buying a Louis Vuitton bag. I've already accepted that because I love Louis Vuitton. But I'm also curious, if you obviously watched the video where Deion called and said that he looked like, or Shadeur was looking like a trash bag or something of that nature. What did you think of the bag that he had?
I described it on denversports.com in my story. I said that Shadeur looked like a fisherman, and a very chic fisherman. And I said Shilo looked like he was going to go camping at a place in Colorado that was for the upscale and wealthy, perhaps like a steamboat or something.
All right.
I'm not the biggest fans of the outfits, but I did really like the natural earthy tones kind of highlighted by that like really bright orange. I thought that was cool.
I love it. I love the orange too. Jake, love having you on as well. Again, we will get you on more, my friend. I know you're a late sleeper, so I always want to make sure you get your beauty sleep.
Thank you. It's working.
It is working. All right, Jake Shapiro, check out all of his stuff over there at denversports.com. He always cracks me up, you guys. He's so much freaking fun. I enjoy his presence so much, and he does such good work. So definitely make sure you check out any of his articles covering the Nuggets, the Buffs, hardcore, good stuff over there. I want to get into a little bit of the cap hell that everybody's talking about when it comes to the Denver Broncos, because it's a little frightening if they're obviously going to move on from Russell Wilson, which I 100% believe that they are going to do. But I want to give a little bit of hope to Broncos country right here, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are playing with $82 million of dead cap this year, and $35 million of that is going to Tom Brady. The Buccaneers are in the playoffs right now. They're having to pay Baker Mayfield more than you have to pay a rookie QB. So there is a little bit of hope for Broncos country if you are so worried about the dead cap hit that's going to come. Again, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing with $82 million of dead cap. 35 of that is going to their quarterback that obviously has retired. So that's 1/3 of their $225 million cap. So I hope that provides just a little bit of hope for everybody, because, to be honest, it is. The cap, I'm starting to believe everybody who's like, the cap doesn't really even exist. It's kind of whatever at this point. I'm starting to really agree with it. You can find ways to work around it. You can give players signing bonuses and all sorts of stuff. I'm not too worried about the money that the Denver Broncos are going to lose out on when it comes to moving on from Russell Wilson. So I hope that provides you with just a little bit of hope, Broncos country. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my alma mater, Colorado State, because last night, if you did not know, I was working with Fox 31 and it was able to help out with their Colorado Sports Night, which is their 11 o'clock show. And I honestly had not even recognized this until I was watching the highlights. And McKenna Hofschild, the Colorado State guard up there, tied her career high, and she's also on the Becky Hammon Mid-Major Player of the Year mid-season watch list, which was awesome to see. Becky Hammon was actually up in Fort Collins this past weekend too, hanging out. She's only 3 assists too. McKenna is only 3 assists away from the Mountain West record, and you guys, get this. She is 5'2". I'm 5'4". I consider myself to be like relatively short. She's 5'2", and she's making huge moves up there. So I want to just give a shout out to her, because it was really cool to watch her highlights and be able to see such an incredible player. One who is so freaking tiny, but also so dominant. She literally like ran through 5 defenders last night. It was absolutely incredible. CSU went on to beat Air Force 81-67. So I just want to give a huge shout out to my alma mater, because of course, always good stuff. I love hanging out with you guys too. And let's get into it. I've been teasing it all freaking week. Even last week I was teasing it. I'm really excited because we are launching a new show, you guys. Tomorrow, I will give you the what time, where you're going to be able to watch it, but there is a new show coming out. It's going to be everything in the headlines. We talk a lot about it here on Coffee Break too, but we want to turn Coffee Break more into a discussion/debate show, and we're going to be giving you guys all the headlines in a fast, fun way. New show. I will give you guys all the information tomorrow. Make sure you tune in. I love you guys so freaking much, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on a Friday. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.